welcome to Breaking into Entertainment Law 2025 edition. I am Jeff Monahan. I'm the former section chair of the Beverly Hills Bar Association Entertainment Law section, and I'm delighted to introduce our panelists for this evening, Joshua Schaub, Michael Sassounian, and Angelica Panelists. Joshua Schaub was appointed commissioner of the American Association of Professional Baseball on March 1st, 2019. Schaub is a chief executive for the American Association and oversees the American Association's operations, media, expansion, revenue initiatives, technology enhancements and emergence, public relations, and relationships in professional baseball. Schaub's baseball background is extensive. He's former CEO and co-owner of the Joliet Slammers Baseball Club of the Frontier League. He's a board member of the Frontier League and Prospect Leagues, and has previously worked in the Milwaukee Brewers scouting department as an intern and associate scout. Additionally, Schaub has served as a consultant and legal counsel to numerous professional baseball teams for both business, legal, and baseball matters. Michael Sassounian graduated from Loyola Law School in 2019 with a concentration in entertainment and media law. While attending LLS, Michael participated in Loyola's Entertainment and Sports Law Society, serving as co-president from 2018 to 2019. Some of Michael's internships during law school included ABC Signature Studios, FX, Donaldson and Califf LLP, ABC Studios, and Sony Pictures Television. After graduation, Michael worked for Walt Disney Television's legal clearance team and now works at Netflix as an associate counsel on their physical production legal team. Angelica Panelists is an associate at Rossi, Baldivia, Klein, Fine, and Spector PC. Her practice includes negotiating, drafting, and reviewing music and entertainment agreements, including recording, publishing, producer and songwriter agreements, master use and sync licenses, live performance agreements, and much more. Before joining Rossi, Baldivia, Klein, Fine, and Spector PC, Angelica worked throughout the music industry, including AEG Presents, Warner Music Group, and Red Light Management. So we have some excellent panelists tonight in sports, TV and in movies, and in music law. So moderating tonight's panel is Emma Aistrop. Emma is a third-year law student at Loyola Law School, and she hosted our panel last year. Thank you so much to Emma for organizing this year. Joshua, Michael, Angelica, thank you for joining us this evening. Can't wait to hear what you have to share with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Just to extend the gratitude, really appreciate you all being here, spending your evening with us. And also thank you to everyone tuning in. Hopefully you're able to take some insight away, apply it to your current law school experience, or use it to score your first job out of law school and beyond. A quick housekeeping update. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the Q&A chat. I'll be looking at those periodically, and we'll also leave some time at the end to answer all of those. So to kick things off and to keep things fairly simple at the beginning, to warm things up, I have a general question to all panelists. Could you share a little bit about your journey to become a entertainment or sports attorney? And I will go with Michael first. You're in the top left box of my screen, and then we can just keep it moving.
Nice. Hey, everybody. Very excited to be here. So my journey started my first year of law school, very interested in film and TV, but had no prior experience. I applied to be a section representative for the Entertainment and Sports Law Society of Loyola Law School. And the only prior experience I had in entertainment I listed was working at the Revenge of the Mummy ride at Universal Studios. So I had very minimal experience going in, and was able to get really lucky with my first internship. It actually wasn't an internship. I was an assistant for a summer at ABC Signature Studios back when ABC Signature was just the cable division of ABC and not the main producer, and was able to leverage that into a fall position, my 2L at FX, and then was able to leverage that into a spring internship at a clearance and copyright firm, Donaldson and Califf LLP. And the following summer was invited back to the ABC studios, now ABC Signature internship. And the following my 3L year was able to work for Sony Pictures Television in their domestic as well as their licensing international business in the fall and spring. Used that to leverage my first position at Disney post-bar, which was on the legal clearances team, also doing some light production legal work. And then finally at Netflix, where I started as an associate counsel and recently was promoted to counsel.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And Josh, moving on to you.
My journey was definitely not linear. I first began in sports prior to law school. I was on with the Brewers as an associate scout and worked in the front office right when the Moneyball era started to go. So I was the one in the cubicle with all the documents around them, checking out, the average height and weight of every second baseman that came from the state of Oklahoma from 1960 to 1988. I mean, that's literally how it started. And I thought at that time that I wanted to go into baseball and be in baseball operations. And my then boss told me I was crazy, that I had an opportunity to go to law school and I should be a lawyer. And that would kind of persuaded me and dissuaded me from becoming a scout or working baseball ops. So I went there. I went to Mitchell Hamlin School of Law. I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota. There was no sports law program. There was no even scintilla of sports related courses there. I went to the dean's office and asked them what it would take to bring in a sports law class. They gave me a list of alumni that worked in sports law in the Twin Cities. I called them up. I recruited one named Clark Griffith. He came in and taught me, and then I became his law clerk. And at the time, Clark was the commissioner of the Northern League, which is the predecessor league for the American Association. So was a clerk for Clark. I had a job lined up post law school in 2008, and then the economy collapsed. Mm-hmm. And the economy collapsed, and I lost my job after 3 weeks. And I, in the finest hour of wisdom, decided I'm going to start my own law firm. And I'm going to do my own thing. So for 6 months, I had a law firm and everything was going great. I was getting a ton of clients, but then all of a sudden I was getting bankruptcy notices. None of my clients were paying me. And fortunately for me, a friend was downstairs in the same office tower I was working in and said, I'm crazy busy. And I asked, what are you doing? And he said, bankruptcy. So my first career, my first job in law really was doing bankruptcy. So for 3 years, we built a bankruptcy firm. And as bankruptcy started to wane, I started to represent buyers and sellers of toxic assets in the sports space. And so a lot of minor league baseball, some hockey, summer collegiate league baseball, and I got to know deal making, the inner workings of the business side. And so in 2013, I had a deal come across my desk and a client that bailed on the deal. And I went and found two partners, two McKinsey directors, and we bought a team in Joliet, Illinois, a minor league baseball team. So I ran that for 3 years, was flying back and forth from Chicago to Minneapolis practicing law, did great, exited in 3 years, bought a summer collegiate league, exited 2 years later, co-founded a professional hockey league. Then somehow I became the commissioner of a professional soccer league for 5 years, all while practicing law. And then that all transitioned to where I'm at today. I run the American Association of Professional Baseball, which for many of you that may not know is an autonomous professional baseball league. It's a partner of MLB. It's about $100 million business, and it's been great. And I still, in my day-to-day work, practice law, although I have an outside general counsel. It's media rights deals, it's sponsorship, it's player contracts, league governing documents, PR, everything that was described when I started. So it's been a very fulfilling journey, very fun, but definitely not a linear path to getting where I'm at.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. I feel like a lot of students are sort of on the same path where it's not linear. So I think you'll have some great advice to share. And last but not least, Angelica, would you mind sharing your path to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I had a cliche college experience where, you come from a conservative family and then you start experimenting in the arts and all that stuff. So I definitely went down the rabbit hole of arts and made many friends who were musicians and writers and fine arts. And so I essentially decided naturally to just manage everybody and proceed as a manager. I ended up getting an internship out of college at Red Light Management and made incredible friends there. Like simultaneously, I was working at this like underground warehouse throwing shows and getting paid in beer, like literally nothing internship. And I ended up loving the job and making a lot of relationships, and it led to getting my first real job as an assistant for a big time music manager named Jeff Quatnitz. And his biggest client today, he used to manage everybody, but his biggest client today is Ice Cube. And we did everything Ice Cube touched. And so that was really awesome. And he went to Harvard Law and he built businesses with that experience. And I saw how he was a better advocate as an attorney, or that was my perception. And so I decided to apply to law school, got in through my relationships working in music management. I ended up, actually, my first internship in law school was because one of the attorneys at the firm that I applied to was like, "Oh, you worked with Jeff Quatnitz? Like, he's a crazy man. You can do anything. Like, so come be part of this firm." And I was like, sweet. And then the other gig that I got, or my second internship, was through a really good friend from Red Light Management. He was also an intern at the time, and we just were working, growing in our careers together and simultaneously. And he was working at Warner when I applied for a Warner job or an internship, and he sent my resume to HR, and I did the rest, right? Like, I interviewed, but it was very helpful to just have that experience before going into law school, or just using the relationships from your peers and like people kind of who are rooting for you authentically, because you both want to succeed and do great things and are aligned in the same way. So did that. Oh yeah, so that was law school. And then afterwards, got my first, I got a job at a firm. I don't know, like Granderson Desrocher. Like, I got an internship there, and they were all incredible. And I was really, banking on hoping to like work there after. Didn't get that, unfortunately, do a series of events that like were kind of out of my control and maybe in my control, but great relationship, loved their team there, but ended up like taking the bar, not having any sort of job lined up for me. And I was a little bit nervous, and got this information from another friend about how someone at AEG named David Rappaport really wanted to build a team of lawyers so that they can develop in global touring. But the title wasn't as glamorous. It was like a contract admin title, but he specifically wanted lawyers, which honestly, I was like, you never hear of this opportunity, because typically they will hire out from big law firms like 20 years into somebody's career. And so they're not willing to like develop a young lawyer to do this job. So I took it and I said, let's see what happens. And it went really well. I really enjoyed, working there and going to all the shows and working on Coachella, doing all these events. But I got a call from another partner that I'd worked with in the past, and he was like, come work at my firm. And I was like, I had that lingering to be an artist advocate again. And I was just like, okay, let's take this chance. And so I joined Rossi PC, and which is now Rossi Baldivia Klein Fine Inspector. And so that was my trajectory or my path in all of this.
I love that. Hopefully you enjoy shows as a fan and no longer have to work them for beer.
Yes. Oh my gosh, artist passes versus like just so different. Spoiled. I'm spoiled now, unfortunately.
Well, thank you for sharing. I'll start with you with this question, and we'll go back around. And just in general, it sounds like everyone just has a very expansive and impressive career. It also sounds like you maybe had an idea of the industry that you wanted to enter as you were starting law school, but how important is it to specialize in the area while you're in school? And are there any specific classes that you would recommend that you kind of still reference to this day?
So that's a great question. I think personally, I was really worried about passing the bar, California bar, because I had these relationships. I was like, okay with the industry. I understood the industry. I studied it a lot, like as a fan and then working in it. So I knew that I should take maybe like a music business course or some sort of copyright law course, just to have the foundation. But I think I only took two. Like, I think I literally took copyright and music business. I instead took everything that I possibly could that was related to the bar, just so I would know the information before studying it. But that's specific to me. I know that other people definitely take a wide variety of those courses.
So it sounds like you at least hit the main areas: copyright, music law. Josh, how about yourself?
Yeah, first thing I'll say, I traditionally always give the advice, if you want to work in sports, that'd be like traditional sports, labor law and antitrust, which is the backbone of everything we do in the sports industry. That being stated, your number one goal should be a great lawyer. Like, without being a great lawyer, nothing else matters. You'll never get your first job, second job, third job without just mastering what's in front of you. So if those classes don't meet, your schedule, or there's conflicts, don't forego some of those primary classes that you'll need to be a great lawyer. But antitrust and labor are primary. The other thing I'll say is sports is just entertainment law with a different product, a product that's unscripted. So the copyright, intellectual property, all also very valuable on this side of the ledger between the panel.
That's super interesting. I don't know much about sports, so that's the first that I've heard. Thank you for sharing.
Unscripted theater, that's all it is.
I love that. And Michael, anything to share?
Yeah, I mean, how I see it is there's two main paths, I think, to kind of breaking into having a job in the entertainment industry. So the one that I've seen that's pretty tried and true is law student is very on top of their studies, very academically rigorous. They're able to do OCI, on-campus interviews. They're able to get summer positions as a summer associate at insert big law name here. They maybe work for a year or two at a large law firm. And then you have, a big law firm experience. You're kind of at the top tier of the class. And because of that, you're able to leverage a position into the entertainment industry a couple years out. And they have, the recruiters at the studios are more inclined to hire somebody like that because they know that you have a really, really strong foundational skill set to do the work. All you have to do is learn the entertainment piece. So that's a pretty tried and true way. The path that I took, because I wasn't in that upper echelon of my studies. I mean, I wasn't a slouch, but I think I did okay. I think the best type of experience that you can get is actually on the job, interning and working in the industry, having people get to know you, have people get to know, your work, and really start to build your career, see what you like and what you don't like to be doing, all while you're doing shorter internships. So I always advise students, if you're kind of in that camp, really the best type of experience is actually going out there, interning, and figuring out what you like and what you don't like. Because when you actually graduate and you're doing a job for the first time, you might not like it. It might not be aligned with your skill set. So I would really focus on that type of practical experience, more on the academic side. That said, for me, I was really interested in entertainment generally. So I got the entertainment and new media law concentration at Loyola, which means I took all the heavy hitter entertainment classes. Do I think that's necessary? Not necessarily. Do I think that helped elevate me to my position? No, not really. It was just classes that I enjoyed, that I was genuinely interested in, which helped me do well in those classes because I actually cared about what was going on.
That definitely makes sense. And you are not a slouch.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I'm going to throw out a curveball. Josh, I hope you like the terminology. It's okay if no one answers, but I feel like this is a general question that students have kind of as they enter law school: is litigation or transactional? It seems like you're all somewhat transactional. If you can't answer this question, feel free, we can pass. But starting with Michael, did you ever question whether you wanted to move into litigation or even have that that sort of itch to pursue it?
It's an interesting question. For me, no, because I knew that starting out, I never really wanted to work at the firm. I wanted to be in-house. The people who I was speaking to, the attorneys who were working in-house versus at the firm, and again, this is my perception and my experience, is that they were just a little bit happier and more fulfilled in their lives generally. And I was like, I kind of want to be in that camp with those people. I don't know if I want to be in this litigation side. I was actually having this thought the other day because, and this is publicly accessible info, but there was a trademark lawsuit that Pepperdine filed over a use of their trademark in one of the upcoming shows that, or one of the shows that we had just launched called Running Point. And I was thinking about, it looks like we had engaged an outside firm to write a response to their TRO. And I was just thinking about the level of speed in which you'd have to write a responsive, litigation style document. There's 20 citations. They, cited the Pepperdine newspaper. I was like, how did you even do that with like a 6-hour turnaround time? That's crazy. And I always I love the theatrics of litigation, but it never really appealed to me because of the paperwork and the practical side of what a life in litigation truly looks like. And so I think if you go down that path, you really have to know what it's like and know that it fits with what you want to achieve and your skill set. Obviously, not doing transactional work covers so many different areas of law entirely. So there's a lot more available jobs and internships and ways for you to figure out what aligns best with you and what fits best with you in more of a transactional lens versus a litigation lens, which is different subject matter, but kind of the same process.
That makes sense. Josh, anything on your end?
Yeah, somewhat of a nuanced response. So I dabbled in litigation. So I did litigation in bankruptcy. And then in my last law firm, I did some litigation until we got to jury trial, right? So I do right up to the time we're about to step in the courtroom. I will say that the advantages of at least working in litigation for a short period of time is the end game. So if you're in transactional law, you can advise your clients exactly what the practical nature of a lawsuit would look like, what the potential risks are of getting something wrong. If there is a lawsuit, what do damages look like and understanding damages, evidence, what will be admissible to court, what will not be admissible to court. That's just a very valuable skill to possess, even in transactional law. Knowing what the end game is because you've been there and you've been in the courtroom to understand how courts operate when it gets real. As they say, when things go sideways, what's going to happen? Having that internal knowledge is really important.
Seeing it from the other side, I'm sure really helps. And Angelica.
Yeah, so I knew from the start I didn't want to be a litigator. It always appeared very adversarial, and that just wasn't my personality. I see people do it incredibly well, and like Michael said, I think the art form is beautiful, and like Josh said, I think it's a great skill if you want to pursue that, and I think firms will appreciate that you have that knowledge. I personally like the business aspect of transactional law and the deal making aspect. It didn't feel, even though you have some tension moments and you're both representing different parties, it's a little bit more collaborative and both sides want the deal to go through. They're not trying to hit each other to do the most damage possible. It's more so let's make this work and let's get this money. So I really like that. Yeah, no, I'm no interest in going into litigation. Sorry.
And you're doing a good job where you are. So we'll shift it over to experience, or at least gaining experience while in law school. So addressing your question, Lucas, starting with Angelica, are you able to provide any feedback or recommendations as to finding internships or opportunities to gain experience while in law school?
Yeah, so while you're in law school, I think it's a great idea to join clubs that are of interest in the field. Secondly, your law school might have days where they're considered networking days that they bring people onto campus. It's a great way to meet people. My personal favorite, because I really like the one-on-one interactions. I love finding people on LinkedIn that or when I was in law school. I mean, I guess it's kind of still true today if I want to do this, but finding people on LinkedIn that have the jobs that I want, and maybe they're not even the top level, but they're like the lower associate, and reaching out for coffee, right? Now, if you have no experience in music, right, and that's an area that you want to learn more, I even suggest you jump on calls, get coffees, get lunches with people that aren't lawyers, right? Like talk to everybody, talk to the agents, talk to the music execs at labels, at publishers, at promoter company. Like just learn as much as you can, ask them questions. They really appreciate it. Like I had coffees with people with no intention to get a job, but just to learn more and like have conversations. And then if those coffees go really well, like there was one place that I really wanted a job. At the end of it, I I knew it was really going well. So I said, hey, like I never see you guys post online, like job internships. What's that about? And they were like, the guy I was talking to was like, oh, well, that's because we get interns through referrals only. And then because it went so well, the coffee went so well, he's like, hey, actually, you should just send me your resume. So naturally it came up, like it wasn't aggressive, just learn more, go out there, put yourself out there, meet people. You have to meet people in this, and they have to know you. And then funny enough, like once you meet people and they refer other people for you to meet, you can even ask them to do that. You can then use that for future conversations where they're talking about themselves and you're like, oh, that person, yeah, they're great. Like I know that like just play into that, right? Like you just go put yourself out there and learn and meet people. That's my advice.
Great insight. And the world is small, which we learned during the call prior to this one when we were the panel. So thank you, Angelica. Josh, how about you?
I'll echo all of those sentiments that were previously stated. Reaching out to people just on LinkedIn and say, can I get a short coffee? Like just tell them this will be a short commitment of time and make sure to buy them the coffee. So if you show up, make sure to be the one. I know things are tight as a law student, but go out of your way to make it as easy as possible for that person to meet with you. So go to wherever they're at, bring them a coffee to their office. That's really important. The other thing is, don't be so direct as to, I need a job, I'm looking for a job. Ask questions like, if you were me, what would you do? And let them respond. And that naturally leads to some things. And I really love the advice of seeking out coffees or lunch or whatever with people that are not lawyers in the industry. Mm-hmm. Also very, very critical. Lastly, I would say your professors are also a great resource. Ask your professors to maybe introduce you to some people that you should know. You know, you want to get in an industry, so there's a professor that teaches a certain class, they will recommend you go meet some people, and it's a warm lead for you. So it's not as tough as maybe getting some time. And it's always great when a professor says, this person's great in my class, you should meet them. Like that's a really big thing for an attorney that may be looking for a clerk or an intern for somebody, getting that recommendation from someone that's been really working with you as their professor for quite a while. So echo everything that's said, make sure to buy the coffee.
Get your professors. And Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with the other panelists, but I think the industry is so relationship based that really cultivating good, strong relationships with people in the industry is paramount. And I think that law students especially are in this like mode of analytical thinking and like, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z so I could attain this thing. And it's like internships and breaking into the industry doesn't work that way. You can't just do X, Y, and Z and then get something back. So it really, truly is being curious, reaching out to as many people as possible. And just like any relationship building in the real world, you're not going to be everybody's like BFF. Like for some people that you really like they have my job that I want so bad, I got to make this work. They might not give you the time of day, and that's okay. There's plenty other fish in the sea for you to connect with, people who like really understand your journey and where you're coming from and who are willing to advocate for you. There are a ton of those people out there. It's just a matter of finding them and really cultivating that relationship. And I'll use this like anecdote because this really helped me, I think, when I was a law student. If you think about the Disney internship, We're very competitive. And think about the summer internship, right? So you're competing against not only 2Ls and 3Ls from all of the LA schools, you're competing against people from across the country who are willing to sublet an apartment for 3 months and work at, Disney and have a big name on their resume. It's really competitive out there. So what's the best way for you to stand out? If you cold apply to the Disney website, it's going to be really hard for you to stand out. So what you can do in that situation is find a way to get a hand on your resume. And whether that be through your fellow students, if they know a recruiter, or if you applied and got a denial from a recruiter, but you see next semester there's a position open, reach out to the recruiter. I mean, you have nothing to lose. Reach out to other people who are 3Ls who had those internships. Like really talk to people and connect, and don't feel like it needs to be so formulaic.
Emma, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
When I was with the Brewers, I was an intern first, and I wanted to work in baseball. I knew it. And the mindset I had was this was like 6 months for the rest of my life. So like I just gave everything I had. I never left the office because it was just 6 months. And I just had to crush it for 6 months. And I would encourage students to have that same mentality. If you are in it and you love it, and I loved it, and you know that's for you, that is your one opportunity to impress a lot of people because you are on the inside at that point. So treat it like I did, like 6 months for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, go ahead.
So one more thing to full circle this. So yeah, it takes time and patience, and like Michael said, just you'll find your people, so don't force it because people will feel it if it's forced. And it might not be the most like linear way, like it's just the right people will bring you into the position. It might not be a lawyer exactly. And what Josh said, like you might live in these offices. My issue was I would just be so good at working that sometimes you forget. Also talk to the people in the office. Like I know that sounds crazy, but the more people that like you in the office, the more that your chances that you'll be picked between like the multiple interns there in the office, right? So even if your work is really great, like, and even though you have so much work to do and get done, still find time to talk to literally everybody and like build those relationships. Okay,
that's a great point. I guess takeaways: crush it, learn the industry, meet everyone, even if they're not attorneys. And I will have to give a shameless plug, but I also join the Beverly Hills Bar Association entertainment section meetings every month. And I just sit in and I listen to what attorneys are talking about, and I find that really helpful. So moving on, still sort of in experience in that area, but I wanted to shift into mentors. I know we spoke about it just briefly during the call preparing for this panel. Can any of you speak to whether you were able to secure mentors, if they helped you, if you still speak with them, and then also just general etiquette? I know that's a lot. It's a loaded question, but we'll start with Angelica.
Actually, fun fact, Michael was my mentor. But Michael did TV and he was very helpful in teaching me in so many ways. And yes, of course, we still stay in touch. Yeah, but our like I do music and he does TV and film. But everything else amazing. Anyway, but the one I kind of struggle with this question a little bit just because I have a lot of people to thank for getting me to where I am. And I do learn from every person that I have interactions with, or I try to. I think that do I have a person that is a symbol to me as a mentor that I constantly go to like weekly and monthly and check in? Not quite. But I do have relationships that have been consistent through my career. That have, people who have thought of me for jobs or have thought of me for things. And those relationships, yeah, I think they're really important. And I try to keep in touch with those people because like we will get like, coffees or lunches at times and like anytime I work with them or I've had jobs with them, I make sure to put the best work quality out there. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm the best suited for this question, if I'm being honest, but I do think they're important. I just haven't had that experience.
Well, thank you. I actually created this question based on knowing that you, you and Michael knew each other. So Josh, I don't know if you have anything to add, and Michael, if not, we can always move on.
I would just say I've been very fortunate that I've picked up a lot of mentors along the way. And part of it was what Angelica discussed earlier, just getting to know everyone every stop you're at and really build deep relationships with people. And I just actually had something come up in my career recently that I had to think to myself, who can I call about this? And I was like, this mental Rolodex of every stop I've made, who could I talk to about this? So I had to go back through all the trips and the 2 law firms and all the businesses and the sports leagues. And like, I actually found a lot, but it was just building those relationships so you're in the spot you were in, and staying in touch.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. You're sort of on a train that keeps moving, and each car represents maybe a few years or a decade of your life, and those train cars fill up with people that you know. Michael, next.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Yeah, so for me, I had a couple of mentors who were, law students in law school, where I was just trying to learn, the in and outs of the industry, how it all kind of worked out. But to everybody else's point, my mentors now, I would say, are former bosses, former supervising attorneys, because they go off, and I think of every group, especially if you intern while you're in law school, you're on a legal team of 10, maybe more, maybe less. Those people go on to work in several different places. They know you, they know your quality of work. And really your network becomes that much more kind of expansive. So I would say I constantly go to former bosses for advice, for like any type of guidance that like I may need. But at this point in my career, I also just try to be a mentor to law students and try to pay it forward as much as I can, because I was, in a very similar position not that long ago. So I think there's a lot of value there. But to bring it back to our earlier conversation, I feel like really the most important part about that is making sure that you actually build a strong relationship with your mentor, so they can actually, they can help and give you advice. But if you're looking to actually have somebody submit a resume for you, really put their neck out on the line and say, hey, like this person would be good at this internship or this job, they're going to need to know you pretty well. There needs to be some level of trust there. There needs to be some level of vulnerability, probably. And so if somebody you're meeting them for the first time, you're probably not going to be able to help them in that way or feel comfortable to do that. So understanding that the human aspect of like actually building relationships so you can feel comfortable enough to help the person in a more legitimate way, other than just giving them advice, which sometimes seems very kind of like lofty and like, how can I actually apply this into my journey and my path? That's really key to actually build out those relationships.
Absolutely. And I have to thank you for all of your help, since you've been a great resource over these past few years. So
no, you're welcome. I appreciate that.
So moving on. So hypothetically, you've graduated law school, you're now looking for your first job. I believe you all touched on it a little bit during the introduction at the beginning of this panel, but starting with Michael, can you kind of just hone in on the first job you secured and how you went about it?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Angelica, I went into the bar not having a job like set. I was almost there. So while I was in bar prep time, I had been at Disney at that point 2 different semesters. People knew me really well. People knew the quality of my work really well. And at the tail end, right before I was leaving to go take the bar, my then about to be boss came and reached out to my boss at Disney at the time. He had an opening on the clearances team, and he asked my boss, what she thought of me, if I was, a good personality fit, if I could do the work, all that kind of stuff. And she, really vouched for me. And she was like, you got to hire him. Like, he's going to get snatched up extremely quickly. And that was purely based on, our relationship. And I will say, there are a lot of internships that you can form those bonds, but I was an assistant 2 different times before I became a bar attorney. And those are the types of relationships that really bring you closer to somebody, because you are, answering phones, you're, there talking and interacting day in, day out, all day. They're helping you learn. They're invested in your growth, most likely. So that type of relationship really helped me have her vouch for me in that way. So I was able to do that. And so the caveat there was because I was already at Disney, they needed somebody then. And so they basically told me, hey, you're going to go take the bar. Like, how much time do you need? And I was a first time bar taker. I was like, I need, 3 months. And they're like, I don't know if we can wait 3 months. And so what I did was negotiate with them essentially, and was like, hey, what if I trained for a month and then you gave me the 2 months? And we went back and forth, and that worked out actually. So I was able to do that, come and then start. And then that was 2020. I was there for about a week. COVID shut the offices down. And if I waited another week, or if that didn't pan out, there's a hiring freeze, and the trajectory of my entire career path would have been significantly different. And so it just really shows how, like, all of this is very tangential and very out there, and all you can do is make connections, try your best, be a good person, and see what comes back to you, because you never know how timing is going to work. There's so many things that are truly out of your hands. But yeah, that's how mine panned out.
That's great. Thank you, Michael. And Josh, how about you?
My first job, and the pathway to that started many years before, but the reality is, when I was at law school and they didn't have a sports law class, and I reached out to a professor, did well in his class, clerked for him. He was the one that got me my first job. So it was one of his connections that I'll never forget this. We were in a big office tower, and he turned around in his chair and he said, I'm going to put you over there. They were building a brand new work-live play development stadium in Minneapolis on the south side. He said the founder there needs help, a young attorney to be in-house for him. And I'm going to set you up for that. Now, I think it also benefited him in certain ways, because as commissioner, he could get some information back through me. So it was somewhat beneficial in nature. That's the job I got let go of in 3 weeks, because no one was building any real estate in 2008. But it really started, the point of that is, my first job started while I was in law school, kind of like tipping over those dominoes to finally get there. And you just have to do well at every stop, and just tip over the next domino, tip over the next domino, tip over the next domino. And like Michael said, a lot of it is tangential. It's just the right place, the right time, but at least set yourself up and be there to make it happen and allow it to happen.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like reputation is really important as well. Angelica.
Yeah, so my first job was tough, because I had put everything into the Granderson internship. Like, I think I was there for 2 or 3 semesters in the hopes that, like, I'd get hired. But the person that was directly my boss left to a new company. And so I think that had things and something to do, or maybe honestly, the other intern just probably outperformed. We don't know. You just never know. So I was left heartbroken when I wasn't chosen to continue after the bar. So I went into the bar not having a job after, and I just thought, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna give this my all to the bar, and then I'll figure it out after. If I'm being honest, I thought I failed the bar. So I was right after, I was just looking at like nanny gigs abroad. And I was like, I'm not being a lawyer. Like, that was ridiculous. And so I ended up, what ended up happening was a friend reached out, because he knew he was actually like one of my mentors in law school as well. And he knew that I was looking for jobs. And he said that this guy named David Rappaport, who's a super great attorney, joined AEG, which is a live promotion company, like I mentioned earlier. And he started this, or he was part of global touring. It's a relatively new program or department at AEG, and they were looking for lawyers to be contract admins to then like develop that business and legal affairs to then become, you know, directors and VPs and do that whole route. And that was something that I was very, very interested in. And I saw that as an incredibly unique opportunity that I'd never seen before. So I reached out, and we had an interview and multiple interviews, and it went well, and we got hired. And yeah, I think that I would have stayed in that. I honestly, it was a great job, but I ended up, it was unfortunately like the pay was a little bit low, and there were other, you know, the title, which I don't want to put any emphasis on that, because I think that's like a little bit more of an ego thing. As long as you're learning and you're like growing in the department, I think it's really important to take it and use it as an experience. But it just really depends on the individual, right? Like, obviously, if you have a kid and you have to provide for your child, like, I'm not going to say take the job that pays like 65K, you know, like take the one that pays your bills, and then maybe you can lateral later. Like, take the employment gig, do that, and if it pays well, and then lateral in house, because there's a lot of employment opportunities in house. So I don't know. That's just what worked for me at that time, with like very limited responsibilities, and then eventually my responsibilities grew, and then I got a different, changed my job. So that happens.
That's great. You actually touched on transitioning, which is perfect. So Sky, we're going to address your question. Thank you for your patience. It seems like everyone sort of was able to move into their respective industries somewhat close to graduating or not long after. Let's say if an attorney, maybe a young attorney, is looking to transition, they're working in a different industry. Are there any specific industries that maybe provide for an easier transition? Angelica, we'll start with you.
Yes. So I would say employment, anything in business. From my experience, I could be missing something. In general, if you're at a big law firm, I feel like those transitions tend to be easier. If you're not, no worries at all. I think my advice is still the same, which is like meet people, talk to people in the industry, not lawyers. And if you have lawyer friends that are working in the industry, reach out to them. And we had two people join our firm recently that never worked in entertainment, but they had a great relationship with the managing partner, and he brought him on because he saw what skills that they could bring and how they could create a better environment for the firm, or like better business for the firm. So but it is a relationship business at the end of the day. So if you don't have any of those relationships, build it. It will be a process. It will take time. If you do have those relationships, just reach out and get more.
That's great. Thank you. And Josh?
Yeah, I went from bankruptcy to sports, so I really transitioned hard. But I did, I mean, I shouldn't diminish it. There's like deal making in bankruptcy too, and that kind of transition into buying and selling teams. But I don't know if there's a particular, you know, area of law you can be in and transition to music or sports. I think the most important part is be a great lawyer where you're at. That's first and foremost. And no matter what area of law, and you'll build skills that are, you know, can transition. And the second is you just need to start getting the coffees, just like law students getting the coffees and reaching out to people in the area of law you want to be in. CLEs are really important. In my area, Sports Lawyers Association, showing up those events, getting really in tune with the topics of today. So for my world, it's NIL, right? So you need to know what's going on in NIL. So you could be practicing doing litigation, you need to know what's going on in NIL, and just reading as much as you can on the side to prepare for some transition when that opportunity arises. But it's going to start with you digging in and meeting people, just like, you know, the underlying thing that we've been saying throughout all of this. It's all about relationships.
Absolutely. And Michael?
Yeah, I would say at least for TV and film, overwhelming, I don't want to say overwhelming majority, but so many attorneys need drafting and redlining experience because so many of these positions are around production. And production involves agreements that need to go be vetted and negotiated, usually with a high volume and a very condensed time frame. And so any way that you have that skill set available and are able to leverage that into trying to break in, I think will be beneficial. Short of that, you need somebody to advocate for you because, you know, if you haven't done entertainment work before, the person who is willing to take a chance on you needs to know that they can trust that you can learn the work, that you have a passion for the work, and that you're not just going to want to dip, or you don't want to just like post and like be at a studio because it's like there are great perks and, you know, whatever else comes with the job. So I would say a good way of doing that when you're getting your coffees, like at least in TV and film, read the trades, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, like those are biggies. That helps you stay informed generally. So when you're talking to people, they'll know that you know what's up. There's a book that that's been recommended to me that I really like. It's called The Business of Television by Ken Basin. A lot of business affairs executives use it almost like a Bible and reference it all the time. That's a really good overview of just TV and film in general if you wanted to learn more about it. So you could be more equipped to have those conversations. And yeah, I think those are good ways to kind of like leverage your experience. I think the other path you can go down is taking a job that you might be overqualified for just to get your foot in the door. And so, you know, for example, when I took this clearance job, I started as a clearance coordinator, was elevated after about a year to clearance specialist, and then leveraged that in a little under 2 years to start at Netflix as associate counsel, then to counsel. So if you're willing to start lower, contract specialist, even coordinator, or even if you have zero experience, but you really want to get your foot in the industry and you start as an assistant, and I would advise if you do start as an assistant, make sure that the executive that you're interviewing with and, you know, will support doesn't just want to use you for your, you know, legal expertise and keep you in the same place. Make sure you're aligned. Okay, like these are my goals. I don't want to stay here forever, even though I want to do an amazing job for you. Does this align? And so if you kind of have those conversations on the front end, you know, after working for them for at least a little bit of time, they're going to help champion you. And that's part of the expectation going in. And that will help leverage you into another job because you've already got your foot in the door at a bigger studio because you maybe took a job that you were a little bit overqualified for a condensed period of time.
Absolutely, that's great advice. And you kind of touched on book recommendations. So you kind of skipped ahead to my next question for everyone on the panel. What resources would you recommend? And then also what resources do you use personally to kind of keep apprised of any changes in your area of the industry? Michael.
Is that back to me? Yeah. Again, just to rattle off the biggies, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline are like vital in TV and film to kind of stay updated on what's going on. I mean, there are a ton of like supplemental books and things that you can figure out, but I think as long as you have business of television also, you really have like that foundational structure of how the industry works in TV and film. And then you have current events through the trades. For me, I think that's like kind of all you need. CLEs are really helpful. Just learning from other attorneys and asking questions, or if you see a case that's really interesting to you, you see like anything that's really like, that burns in your soul a little bit that you want to learn more about and you want to figure out how that was actually like worked out. All these people are on LinkedIn. All it takes is a message, and leading with that curiosity will always, gathering information will always benefit you. So stay hungry for info, I would say too.
That's great. And Garrett is asking the name of the book. It was Business and Television. And what was
Business of Television by Ken Basin.
Great, thank you. And
Yeah,
Josh,
no problem.
you had mentioned CLEs, but what do you use personally?
So in our industry, Sports Business Journal is the Bible. So you need to read that consistently to stay up with everything that's changing just on the business side. So if you don't understand the business side, it's harder to practice law in sports, to be completely honest, because things evolve like everything else. I also believe in fact that there's great lawyers that put out great material on LinkedIn and Twitter. Darren Heitner, Mitt Winter are two. Those are two follows that I don't know how they find time to practice law and do social media. And I'm pretty sure they're the ones doing it. They don't have an assistant doing it. It's amazing what kind of information you can pull from them that just it consolidates everything in one spot. The other one is podcasts, like Tulane Sports Law has a great podcast. Gabe Feldman is the podcast host. It's just phenomenal information, all very relevant, topical. And then lastly, again, I'll plug Sports Lawyers Association, the CLEs they put out, they have forms they put out. That's all really relevant. And it's relevant and they give you baseline knowledge for a lot of things.
That's great. Thank you. And Angelica.
Yeah, so the biggest one in music, you might have already heard of it, is All You Need to Know About the Music Business by Donald Passman. It's like Bible. It really is like everywhere. And then as for magazines or like trades, I would say Billboard, Hits Double Daily. Billboard is one, and then Hits Double Daily. Oof. And then I don't know, sometimes Variety has some things. I'm forgetting now, but really like just being online, just being on social media, if you're like Googling enough, you'll find your niche. And I like that podcast idea. I do second that. I think like just listening to people talk in the industry talking, that's a great idea. Like that's a great resource. And then this is to go back to things that we mentioned in the past about coffees. Definitely don't only talk about law school things when you're on coffees. Absolutely talk about the industry and what's current and even what's not specifically in the industry, but what's going to impact the industry. For example, AI is everywhere right now, and that's going to impact the industry. Talk about that. They're going to love you. That's so much more interesting than like talking about just, yeah, what class are you in or what do you want to do? Like that. Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to mention that. Tangent.
Emma, can I hop in and with a podcast rec too that just popped up? The Town by Matt Bellini. I think it's Matt Bellini, but it's called The Town for sure. Is like popping off right now. Everybody's listening to it. It's like for TV and film, almost like vital listening. So I'd suggest if you wanted to learn more about the industry and didn't want to read, going just to the beginning and listening to a lot of those podcasts like will be extremely beneficial.
It's very funny. I sat at the table with Matt at USC. They had the Legal and Business Institute, and he had recommended it to everyone. So that's
yeah,
great.
It's great.
We're almost at time, but we have one more question that just popped up. Is there a need for studios, publishers, and the like to hire DEI attorneys today? Will being part of a traditionally underrepresented community help my chances, or is that not a thing in the industry? Thank you, Jose. Michael, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, a very tough question, but there are several studios, including Netflix, that really emphasizes their DEI efforts. I would say, I guess the only advice that I feel like I could give is, meet people in the DEI space at these places, see what the programs and the resources are. A lot of studios, including Netflix, have employee resource groups that provide resources for all different kinds of folks. So I would encourage you to look into those resources and talk to those people to get their perception and their advice.
Great, thank you. Josh, anything to add?
Yeah, I don't know about the studios. On the sports side, I can tell you Major League Baseball has made a major effort to continue their DEI efforts. There was actually a great speech at MLB winter meetings about everything they're doing there. And I would encourage anyone looking at sports law, speaking only for Major League Baseball, they are still continuing those efforts and that door is open.
Incredible. And Angelica?
Yeah, I want to echo that. I think at least speaking for big companies like, publishing companies and record labels, they absolutely have programs. Now, I don't know if every single firm that represents like musical artists will have a specialized program or anything, but I think the general consensus amongst all music attorneys, at least in LA, is yes, this is absolutely important. So that's at least my understanding.
And it looks like we're at time, but I want to ask one last question to kind of wrap things up. If you could give yourself advice as a law student or maybe just exiting law school, what would you tell yourself then, knowing what you know now? Angelica.
Oh no, wait, skip me. No.
Just
keep going. It's a wild ride. It's a journey. It's a marathon, not a race. If you don't get the gig that you want now, it might come together in a couple of years, which maybe you didn't even want that in a few years, and it leads to something else better. Like, you never really know. All you have control over is how you interact with people, how you prepare and present yourself, and the quality of your work. And a lot of the other things are kind of out of your grasp, but really focus on the things you can control.
Great, thank you. Where's the positivity? Josh?
I will only say, and I'm gonna generalize this, if there's a time in your life ever that you can give everything, because you only have one mouth to feed, not assuming everyone only has one mouth to feed. I'm sure there's others with kids and partners out there that need to support and family members, but man, give it everything you've got. And like everything you've got, now is the time to do it. Because as life moves on and you have a dream, it's going to get harder and harder to chase as other people are supporting you, and you need to just go what you can get. Now is the time to chase your dream as hard as you possibly can. All the coffees, all the relationships, the reach out, the cold calling, like all of that needs to happen now.
Incredible. And Angelica?
Thank you. So I guess this is my advice for everyone, because I feel like I felt this in my bones, the resilience. Like, you have to be resilient. You're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get no's from people that just want to say no to teach you a lesson because they had a hard time. And they just want to see how resilient and hardworking you are, which is not fair, but it is the reality of it. And long hours, at least in music, very little pay for those long hours, and at least in the start. And then just keep going. If this is your passion, I'm assuming that nothing's gonna stop you. And if it's not your passion, maybe consider other things, because everyone's going to reality check you and say, consider other things if you want to just get rich quick. Like, consider other things. But if this is your passion, then you're gonna make it. Just keep going, honestly.
I love that. So it sounds like we ended on a positive note. I would like to thank you all again for joining. Everyone who has been on Zoom, hopefully your questions were answered. And I would also like to thank the panelists again for your time. You provided some really incredible insight, and you're all very accomplished. So you are the motivation to keep on going. So with that, again, thank you everyone for joining, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You may be eligible for CLE credit in your state. Visit bhba.org/podcasts for more information.